In this episode of Cosmic Sponge, an anthropologist believes hobbits may lurk in the dense forest of an Indonesian island. President Biden signs into law a new bill which includes the investigation of a crashed avocado and its praying mantis pilots. For our main topic, we discuss the Fermi Paradox and the possibility of intelligent life beyond our skies. And if that isn't enough excitement for you, we also include some math to kick up the energy levels and blow your mind. Right. And, I could put everybody to sleep right now, and I'm going to. The Drake equation is simply N equals R sub star times F sub P times N sub E times F sub L times F sub I times F sub C times L. There you have it. And that's our episode.
Welcome to Cosmic Sponge, the podcast where we discuss weird wonders in the world. I'm Stephen Hall.
And I'm Jimmy Coe.
This will be the first of 3 episodes that are somewhat connected. I mean, when we think about UFOs,
I think about them all the time.
If UFOs exist, are they aliens from another star system? If so, the extraterrestrial pilots of these craft have to overcome several massive hurdles to master interstellar travel. The next 3 episodes, we're going to be looking into this reality of traveling between the stars. How vast the universe actually is, how much distance is in between stars, and what's the possibility that life exists beyond planet Earth. So we're going to dive into some of that stuff, but first, Jimmy, what's been going on in your world in the past couple of weeks?
Well, before we get into that, I was just thinking maybe some of the balloons that are in the skies that are UFOs are actually alien balloons.
Interstellar alien balloons, right?
Yeah, it's possible. It's something maybe we'll look into a little bit more in depth later. But as far as my weekend goes, it was the new year, and I spent it working.
Nice.
Yeah, well,
How was Christmas? Was Santa Claus good to you?
Christmas was awesome. But what did I get for Christmas? I can't even remember. See, I got a stuffed dog, so that was cool. We don't need to go into detail on that one.
Somebody stuffed one of your dogs? Is that, and then like a mantelpiece or something now?
Well, no, not really. So,
bronze it or something?
Well, they have this service where you can send in pictures of your dead pet, or your living pet for that matter, and they'll construct a stuffed animal that mimics your lost pet or your living pet, either one. It is so lifelike that it's freaking me out because my dog passed away this past year. It was really sad. I had him for a long time. I set it on the edge of the couch downstairs, and as I was walking by, I caught the peripheral vision there, and it freaked me out. And every time, so I've locked him away in a closet. I can't take it.
Does it look like the dog's lying there? Or?
Yeah, just like he's sitting there like he used to. It's creepy. Yeah.
Yeah, Elizabeth get that for you?
No, my daughter got it for me, but it's the thought that counts. I appreciate the thought, but a bit
whatever.
much.
Yeah, that's cool. I know you were upset when your dog died.
Yeah. So that sounds like I had a bad Christmas, but no, I got a lot of hot sauces, so I love hot sauces.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, none of them were hot enough. They were supposed to be really hot, but I like really hot.
Oh, I can send you some hot sauce.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Yeah.
I'd take it.
Yeah, we had, right before Christmas, COVID visited our house. So we really haven't had only about half of our Christmas because my son's family didn't get to come down. My grandson got sick after that. So, yeah, we're just, we kind of had a intermittent kind of Christmas. It wasn't full Christmas yet.
Oh,
so.
That was a big bummer.
Yeah.
Way to bring everybody down.
I mean, otherwise, we're thankful everybody's good now. And so, yeah, this is our first episode of 2023. And I do have a news story here. I know over the break, I did send you this article about The Hobbit, right?
Oh, yeah, about the hobbits. I've been meaning to ask you about that. Do they know what hobbit families it was? Was it the Baggins, the Boffins, the Bulgars, the Brandybucks, the Barrows, the Chubbs, the Grubbs, the Hornblowers, the Proudfoot, or the Sackvilles? Or possibly the Tooks?
Wow, you know a lot about The Hobbit, the J.R.R. Tolkien version of The Hobbit.
I'm a bit of a nerd, but I did mention the Brace girdles.
This is an article on IFL Science. I posted this on our Facebook page. There's an anthropologist that believes the ancient human species might still be alive in the forests of Flores Island. In 2003, archaeologists were looking for evidence of the migration of modern humans from Asia to Australia, and they found a small, fairly complete skeleton of an extinct human species on the Indonesian island of Flores, which came to be known as Homo floresiensis. It became more commonly known as the Hobbit, after the small creatures from J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. The species was initially thought to have survived until relatively recently, around 12,000 years ago, before further analysis pushed the date way back to 50,000 years. But there is one retired anthropology professor from the University of Alberta who says that evidence that the species' continued existence may have been overlooked. In fact, the Hobbit may still be alive today, or at least within living memory. In an opinion piece for the Sciences, promoting his upcoming book Between Ape and Human, Gregory Forth argues that paleontologists and other scientists have overlooked indigenous knowledge and accounts of an ape man living in the forests of Flores. He says, "My aim in writing the book was to find the best explanation that is the most rational and empirically best supported of Leo accounts of the creature. These include reports of sightings by more than 30 eyewitnesses, all of whom I spoke with directly, and I conclude that the best way to explain what they told me is that a non-sapient hominin has survived in Flores to the present day or in very recent times."
Well, you know they're crafty, those hobbits. They're like little ninjas. They sneak around.
They got the little furry feet and all.
They got little padded feet. You can't hear them. They'll sneak up on you, slit your throat. I mean, well, they don't do that, but I mean, they could because they're sneaky. Now, Flores is only like 15,000 square kilometers, something like that. So it's not huge.
Pretty small.
It's got 1.8 million people as of last census, I think, something like that.
Yeah, it's not a huge island, but anyway, yeah, I mean, I guess some of the indigenous peoples there within the past 100 years, as this anthropologist says maybe, they've had their own version of Bigfoot over there, only it's Littlefoot. It's wee feet.
It's wee feet.
Furry foot.
Give that little furry foot a go. So, I mean, they're little. You can catch them. It's not like they can sprint.
Well, they could hide, right? Being small.
Like ninjas. They're using their ninja skills to hide. Maybe they burrow in the ground like the hobbits do. That's where their homes are. But, I mean, you see those round doors, you'd probably be able to see them, right?
I guess.
I don't know. None of this makes any sense to me. I'm not buying what this guy's selling.
Hey, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? So, how about this for a news story? Biden orders investigation into UFO piloted by praying mantis.
No way.
So, as part of the new military spending bill signed by Joe Biden just recently, they are supposed to investigate a crash that happened in 1945, and this is one which Jacques Vallée has written about recently, the Trinity UFO crash. And the claim there is that in 1945, a avocado-shaped craft crashed.
With a praying mantis inside.
Not just one, but a whole family. Well, I mean, they were all alive except for one, which had its head bitten off. So this was witnessed by a B-52 bomber pilot, the son of a rancher, and his little pal. So I believe the boys were age 9 and age 5. I'm not sure what age the bomber pilot was at the time. He has since passed away. So they said that they saw these strange creatures moving around inside, and they looked a lot like praying manti. Is that the plural for mantis? Manti?
I don't know. Mantises.
Mantises. Jose Padilla, who goes by Old Joe, claims he later watched through binoculars as soldiers loaded the 25 by 14-foot craft onto a truck and covered it with tarps. Controversy over this particular stories and others runs rampant both in the UFO community and in the broader community. with reported sightings of UFOs in places all across the world, the avocado-shaped UFO isn't an unusual one. As a matter of fact, the tic-tac-shaped UFOs, and even the one witnessed by our cop friend, what was his name? Remember the one you liked so much? The cop who witnessed the tic-tac-shaped UFO in the desert. He was chasing the kids. What was that one?
The one from the early 60s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The balloon.
Dang.
Yeah.
What was the name of that incident? And we're going to have to look it up.
Yeah, let's look that up really quick. Let's see. Egg-shaped balloon UFO.
Well, egg-shaped is not avocado-shaped.
Well, I mean, it's close. UFO cop. That was Arizona, right? Or was that New Mexico? New Mexico. Of course, New Mexico. It's all in New Mexico. That's where the bomb went off, right? That was the Socorro UFO encounter of 1964. Right. And that was Lonnie Zamora, and they call it the Zamora UFO. So, I mean, we've had these egg or avocado shaped. I mean, pick your home for praying mantis
Tic-tac.
That, you like.
The praying mantis alien, though, that seems a little unusual. I thought they were all gray with the big eyes and things.
I think maybe the journalist may have taken a little bit of liberty with the descriptions.
What's the name of this
to give a little
incident?
Bit of a spin to it. The Trinity UFO crash.
UFO. All right. Maybe we'll cover that sometime.
Sure. It'll be a fun one to do.
I think some of the abductee or experiencers in the UFO community have said there's some insectoid race sometimes around, hanging out on the ship or whatever.
I just don't want to work in their sugarcane mines.
What about the spice mines of Kessel?
Well, sure. I mean, that's not as bad, is it? Couldn't be. It sounds spicy. I like hot stuff.
Yeah, they totally lifted that from Dune.
Without a doubt.
All right, so let's move on to tonight's main topic. But before we do, I'd like to remind everyone to please rate and review the podcast wherever you listen. Now, take a second. Give us a nice review. Our downloads are way up right now. And when you review it or just throw some stars up there on whatever platform that you listen with it, the algorithms that Apple uses and some of the other streaming providers, they'll boost us up in the listings if you the better reviews and ratings that we have. Look for us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group there called Cosmic Sponge Theorist, or just look for Cosmic Sponge on Facebook. I try to post a few stories every week. Hopefully Jimmy will put his UFO story on there, but all the stories that I cover generally put on Facebook. Our webpage is cosmicsponge.com. There you can find the web store where you can buy some souvenirs. There's also ways to support the show on there, such as buy me a coffee for a one-time donation, or if you would like to give us your support on an ongoing basis, you can do it through Patreon. And then you can gain access to another show that we do called Weird Wonders that we produce exclusively for our Patreon supporters. Our contact information is firstcontact@cosmicsponge.com. Well, all right. So the question we are asking, it's one of those big what-if scenarios. We discuss UFOs quite a bit on this show, and sometimes seriously, sometimes not so seriously. But if UFOs are real, and if they are extraterrestrial, then they have to overcome some laws of physics as we understand them. If UFOs exist, are they aliens from another star system? If so, the extraterrestrial pilots of these craft have to overcome several massive hurdles in order to master interstellar travel. One problem is the vastness of space itself. The distances between our nearest stellar neighbors are enormous and just can't be underestimated. The fastest spacecraft ever launched by us is the Voyager 1 probe, which has now entered interstellar space. It is traveling at 61,500 kilometers an hour, or 38,214 miles per hour. Now that's over 56,000 feet per second, or well over 10 miles per second. Think of something in your neighborhood that's 10 miles away, a town or whatever. The Voyager spacecraft is traveling that distance in 1 second. But even though that's very fast, that is still way, way slower than the speed of light at over 186,000 miles per second. And that's also 671 million miles per hour, or 300,000 kilometers per second. Alpha Centauri is our nearest stellar neighbor at over 4.37 light years from Earth. The light that we see here on Earth from the star of Alpha Centauri takes 4.37 years to reach us. Now, if Voyager were on course to Alpha Centauri, the fastest spacecraft ever launched by humans, it would take over 70,000 years to get there. The laws of physics based upon the mathematics of Albert Einstein say that nothing can move faster than the speed of light. So even if you had almost limitless energy, you could never travel at the speed of light or faster. There is nothing in physics to say you cannot travel 99.9% of the speed of light, but you can never go beyond this cosmic speed limit. This is not just an engineering problem like breaking the so-called sound barrier. This is an immutable law of physics. Now, in the next 3 episodes, we are going to talk about these very problems. And specifically, tonight's episode, we're just going to be looking at the question of whether or not life even exists beyond planet Earth. We've only explored a very tiny fraction of the universe beyond our planet, but so far, we have found no other life, no single-celled organisms, nothing. And Jimmy?
Yeah.
I know you've probably done a little legwork on this subject. How about getting us started on life beyond Earth?
Trash cans had gone missing and the aliens were at the top of the suspect list. It was 1950 and the Big Apple was experiencing a rash of thefts focused entirely on the city's trash cans. At the same time, the country was also experiencing a UFO flap, that is, significant observable UFO activity. The New Yorker magazine offered its own take on both the case of the missing trash cans and the apparent uptick in UFO sightings with a single cartoon depicting aliens carrying the trash cans out of their flying saucers back on their home planet while grinning ear to ear. It was this cartoon that also sparked a conversation between a group of physicists out to lunch. They discussed the UFO phenomena, which led to a mention of the cartoon. Just as they were sitting down, one of the physicists, Mr. Enrico Fermi, suddenly exclaimed, "Don't you ever wonder where everyone is?" Fermi then proceeded to perform quick back-of-the-envelope math, as physicists do when confronted with a problem. Let's see, there's the age and the size of the Milky Way. Let's say it has, X number of stars, Y number of planets, and of those, there are Z percentage of the planets that could support life. It's a near certainty they exist. Not only that, they exist in sufficient numbers to have colonized the entire galaxy. So why haven't we heard from them? And just like that, the Fermi Paradox was born. Simply put, given the number of stars and planets in the Milky Way galaxy, why hasn't anyone come knocking and asked to borrow a cup of sugar? It's time to ask one of life's big questions. Are we, the human race, alone in the universe? What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, and in case anybody's wondering, Enrico Fermi was the father of modern nuclear physics, I suppose.
Yeah, they called him the architect of the nuclear age.
Yeah, he, in 1942, I'm wanting to say, this is after the United States had entered World War II. Now, he was a immigrant from Italy who escaped fascist Italy. Once the United States had decided to pursue the Manhattan Project and look into the possibility of building an atomic weapon, Enrico Fermi built the world's first nuclear reactor in the old squash court, I think,
of Chicago
the University of Chicago.
Yeah. Pile 1 or something like that.
He experimented with it and built the world's first nuclear reactor and, of course, created the first plutonium. Thanks, Enrico.
You're the reason we're in this mess.
But anyway, very brilliant man. Fermi Lab, of course, is named after him, the particle accelerator here in the United States. This was just a casual question. UFOs had been talked about, obviously, since 1947 with the Kenneth Arnold sightings, and it was a very hot topic. And at this time, the United States government was still pretty open about the topic as well. So when everyone's saying, hey, these flying saucers, maybe they're aliens from another planet, as Jimmy had said in his introduction, looking at the probability that there's other habitable planets, that there should be aliens everywhere, but there's not, right? I mean, unless UFOs are and they have some hidden agenda, but let's just look at what we really know. The birth of the universe is 13.7 billion years old. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. In that amount of time, there should have been, even just in our Milky Way galaxy, which is believed to have formed shortly after the formation of the universe, there should be older civilizations that had existed maybe even before the Earth had formed. There should be many of them, right? And I think that would lead us to another very famous person, Francis Drake, who was an astronomer and came up with a formula to look at this very question. How many civilizations should exist? And this, he developed what was known as the Drake equation in 1961.
Right. And, I could put everybody to sleep right now, and I'm going to. The Drake equation is simply N equals R sub star times F sub P times N sub E times F sub L times F sub I times F sub C times L. There you have it. And that's our episode. So let's break that down and put it into English so I can wake all you guys back up. N is going to be the number of civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy with communication that might be possible with us. So at least technologically advanced enough to send out radio waves or some other indication that they exist and that they want to communicate with us. Then next we have R sub star, and that's the average rate of star formation in our galaxy. That gives us an idea how many stars are forming. F sub P is the fraction of those stars that have planets. That's going to be important because as far as we know, no life lives in stars. Though I've seen some Star Trek episodes, so we can't rule it out. N sub E is the average number of planets that can potentially support life per star that has planets, and that's life as we know it. And then F sub L is the fraction of planets that could support life that actually develop into intelligent life at some point. Actually, no, that says the fraction of planets that could support life that actually develop life at some point. So,
right, there's a difference between planets that could support life and the ones that actually do develop life.
Right. And then F sub I is the fraction of planets that do develop life where that life actually reaches an intelligent level. And then F sub C is the fraction of civilizations that develop a technology that releases detectable signs of their existence into space. So that would be some advanced technology that emits into the atmosphere that will show some kind of industrialization process, for example. And then finally, L is the length of time for which such civilizations release detectable signals into space. Now, one of the important things to mention in all of this is there's a thing called the light cone. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because it's a pretty dense topic. It is simply the idea that it's a way to get around general relativity, to put everything on an equal playing field, so that if you're looking at two different points in space, you can put them on an even playing field so you can ascertain whether or not they can view each other over whatever distance they are apart from one another. So you produce essentially a light cone. And one cone is the light as it goes into the future, and the other cone represents the light as it exists in the past. And then you have another point somewhere else which also has its light cone. Where those two intersect determines whether or not they are able to communicate with one another, that they're able to see one another. There are some cases where observable points in the universe exist in a time span relative to ours so that they will never communicate with us or be able to see us, or we won't be able to communicate with them or see them. And that just has to deal with the motion of the universe going out and how long they exist and survive on their planet and how long we survive and exist on our planet. It may be that they died out before they ever got into essentially our light cone.
And I think that with that being said, that's why let's really not even consider extragalactic life.
Right.
when we're discussing this, we need to focus on the Milky Way galaxy. The Milky Way galaxy is believed to hold at least 200 billion stars. That's a lot of stars that could potentially have planets around them, probably as our investigations have over the past couple of decades proven that there's a lot of planets around stars. Almost every planet we look, or star we look at, we detect planets. Now, these are known as exoplanets. The Milky Way is just one galaxy. If we look at other galaxies, there's just based on like the Hubble Deep Field, where they took the darkest place they could find in the sky, a little tiny square, took a very long exposure photograph back in the 90s, and Hubble detected thousands of galaxies just in this little tiny square. And now that we have the James Webb Space Telescope, that can look even further back in time. Because remember, what we're seeing all travels by the speed of light. Whenever the light that's reaching us is the same as looking into the past. And it's a little difficult sometimes to wrap your head around, but we're talking about communicating with civilizations that are light years away. Our nearest large galactic neighbor is the Andromeda Galaxy. So that one galaxy, which they believe may hold as many as 1 trillion stars, that galaxy, the edge of it is 2.5 million light years away. That means the light that is just now reaching planet Earth from the Andromeda Galaxy is 2.5 million years old. The light was produced before humans even evolved on this planet. So let's focus on the Milky Way galaxy, because those distances between all the other galaxies in the universe are so vast, so very vast, that it's mind-boggling. I mean, you can't wrap your mind around it, because the distances in our own galaxy are mind-boggling. Movies like Star Trek, Star Wars, they make traveling between the stars seem very easy and simple, and you can be there in a couple of days or a week or whatever. But at least the way we understand physics today, there's no way to travel that fast. But now, a couple of episodes from now, we're going to get into some of the other proposed ways of traveling between the stars. But what we want to focus on now is, what is the probability that life even exists out there in our galaxy, so, a place, a civilization that we could maybe communicate with. So, yeah, Francis Drake, he was an astronomer. He just passed away last year, I think. And he came up with this equation, or this formula, in order to quantify the number of civilizations. It's a way just to have a dialogue about it, because the only thing we know for sure in that equation is the average rate of star formation in our galaxy. That's the only thing we can answer. None of the other factors of this formula can be answered, except for now, FP, the number of planets, is, pretty good guess now because of the discovery. He came up with this formula in 1961. So since then, we've discovered quite a few planets, exoplanets. So now that's something that can be answered.
Right.
But the other things.
Yeah, like over 5,000 exoplanets at this point.
Right. So 5,297 confirmed exoplanets have been discovered as of January 1st, 2023, which was just yesterday as we record this. Now, the first exoplanet was not confirmed until 1992, and that was a planet orbiting a pulsar. But you know what I find most interesting about the discovery of exoplanets? First of all, most scientists were like, look, we have a star here. We have all these planets orbiting around our star. Most likely, the other stars we see out in the galaxy and in the universe also have planets, because it just stands to reason. But the one thing that I found very fascinating once we've started discovering exoplanets is we had always assumed, because of the way our solar system's laid out, that all the small rocky planets are on the inner solar system, and then all the large gas giants would all, for whatever reason, would exist farther out in the outer planets, the way our solar system is. In other words, we have Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, which are minuscule, tiny compared to the size of the sun or the size of Jupiter even. And then we have Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, these large gas giants. But it turns out, once they started discovering exoplanets, that there's a lot of really, really large planets very close to the suns. Now, granted, these are the easy ones to detect because they orbit their sun so fast that it makes confirmation easier, because most of them are discovered by measuring the amount of radiation coming from the sun. In other words, a large planet goes in front of its sun from our perspective, and it reduces the amount of light coming from that star. And then maybe they wait 80 days and it comes around and does it again. They're like, okay, now we've detected this orbit of this very large planet. So those are the easy ones to find anyway. But we have discovered some Earth-like planets, or what we consider Earth-sized planets, exoplanets around some stars. I forget the percentage. I think it's 1 in 5, because they're specifically looking at yellow stars because that's what our sun is. And they've discovered some in what's known as the Goldilocks zone. In other words, it's not too hot, not too cold. It's just right. The place where scientists believe liquid water could exist, because we know that was the origin of life on Earth, was in liquid water, we believe. Most certainly multicellular life evolved in an ocean. And just recently, very recently, I believe, using the James Webb Space Telescope, they were able to detect through the atmosphere of a planet as it was transiting in front of the star. They were able to take a spectrographic analysis of that atmosphere and determine there was water vapor in that atmosphere. So that's pretty exciting in this exoplanet. As far as we know, that's a good potential for life, but still, we don't know. Does life exist out there?
I wonder, it would help if we even knew if life existed in our own solar system. And I think to date, we still don't have an answer to that.
I remember back in the mid-1970s, I was a kid, and we launched the Viking landers. It was a massive project and a massive success for NASA. We had 2 spacecraft, Viking 1 and Viking 2. They had orbiters that also photographed the planet, orbited the planet, and they dropped these 2 landers. The landers had these robotic arms that would reach out and grab a shovelful of Martian sand, put it through a little analysis, and try to detect life. On one of them, the test came through positive, that there was life on Mars. But then it was the only one. And the other tests that they did, this thing had like a little lab able to cook it up. It was mix it with some nutrients and things, and it was very clever the way they did this. But the problem is none of the other tests that were supposed to detect life detected life. So then it was declared that Mars was dead. In fact, I bookmarked an article. I didn't plan to bring this up, but I bookmarked an article several years ago. Thought we might talk about it on the show sometime, where the scientists involved created the test that gave a positive result for life, is convinced that life was found on Mars. The best thing you can say is that the test was inconclusive, because there was no second test to prove it. Like, say, hey, we did this test, it said it gave us a positive result. We did another test, it gave us a positive result. Problem is, there was 1 positive, 1 negative. But since then, NASA has sent an army of Martian landers. Every 2 years, it seems, we drop some landers on Mars, but none of the other ones have searched for life the way the Vikings did. They have looked at geological record. They've tried to go where there's been water, but they've not done any of those kind of tests for microscopic life since Viking.
Hey, did the Viking probes, once they found life, were they to extinguish it, put it down, like their namesake?
So and rob their treasury.
Yeah. So
take back some microbes with them.
So it's not just planets that are likely to hold life. There are moons that some speculate. Matter of fact, many would say that Europa, or maybe Titan, are some of our best candidates. And matter of fact, they're launching a new ship called JUICE to Europa. It's going to arrive there in 2030. It's supposed to take off in 2024. And that may get us close enough to take some pictures of the surface, and perhaps we'll see some dolphins in fursuits or something jumping in and out of the icy icy waters.
Yeah, they're going to launch the Europa Clipper. I think, looks like they're going to launch it in October of 2024 is where they're planning now. This one's going to land in 2030. Now, I think this spacecraft is just going to orbit
the
moon
Europa Clipper.
Europa.
Yeah. Low altitude flights.
Flybys. Well, one thing spacecraft have to be very mindful of is, or at least designers of these robotic probes, is that Jupiter puts out an enormous amount of radiation. So that's why even the Juno probe that's there now does these very long elliptical orbits around Jupiter. It'll get close, but then it'll zoom back out to cool off. Jupiter just has this massive magnetosphere, massive amounts of radiation. So, but back on the possibility of life on Europa. So one thing the Viking or the Voyager probes first discovered was that, and let's see, what did we send after that? Magellan? Was it Magellan? No, Galileo was the first dedicated Jupiter probe. But when they first looked at Europa, it's been discovered that it has frozen ice, water ice, all the way around, and there's these massive cracks in it, which leads some to wonder if there's not a liquid ocean. In fact, it's almost certain there's a liquid ocean underneath the ice. No one knows exactly how thick it is, but hopefully the Europa Clipper and other Europa missions will be able to use radar and things like that to be able to determine the exact thickness, and then maybe later in the future develop some type of technology to drill through the ice, put some kind of probe in there, and look for life. Because Jupiter has such a massive gravity that these moons going around Jupiter are almost like a mini solar system. And the gravity, the gravity of each moon react to each other, and also this massive gravity of Jupiter, that it creates friction in the planet. Like it'll elongate and then contract, elongate and contract. So this friction creates heat. And so that's why they believe that it's most likely that Europa has a molten core and is warm enough and has this liquid water under the ice. And again, scientists believe that anywhere there's liquid water, there may be a very good chance that there is life. Another planet around Saturn, this is a big surprise.
Well, not a planet, a moon, right?
Correct, I'm sorry. But around the planet Saturn is the moon Enceladus. Originally, Cassini mission was sent there, I don't know, in early 2000s. Launched in the 90s sometime. Takes forever to get to the outer planets. This was a very large spacecraft, about the size of a school bus. It dropped a lander called a Huygens lander, landed on the moon Titan because it's the only moon that has a significant atmosphere. If you look at it in a telescope from Earth, Titan looks as if it's all cloudy and sort of orangey looking and everything, and no one could see below these clouds. And we dropped a probe onto the surface of Huygens. I'm wanting to say it's around 2003. I didn't look it up exactly. And what we discovered is that the geography of Titan, the moon Titan around Saturn, looks a lot like the Earth. There's lakes, there's river valleys, there's rain. The only problem is these are hydrocarbons. The lakes are methane. It is so cold on Titan that these liquids, these rivers, this precipitation is all very, very, very cold. There's water ice on Titan, but it's frozen so solid that it would be as hard as granite on this planet. It would be just like a rocky cliff. But some scientists think because we have this liquid medium on that planet, even though it's that cold, even though it's so cold, because there's a liquid medium, maybe some kind of life could form there, a life maybe not the way we exactly understand it. But it hasn't been detected yet. And in fact, the Huygens probe was not designed to even look for that sort of thing. It was mostly designed just to take atmospheric readings and readings of what was on the ground and a few pictures. That was essentially all. It only lasted a few hours. But since then, the Cassini probe orbited Saturn for many years. looked at all of the moons. There's like something crazy, like 83 moons or something around Saturn, I think.
Yeah, it's a popular place for them to hang out. It's where they go cruise on Saturday nights.
Right. But anyway, the moon Enceladus, it's a very small moon, but it was discovered as Cassini was there that there's water leaking out of the South Pole, being pulled towards Saturn. This water is spewing forth out of the cracks of this moon of Saturn. And so we know for a fact that there is water ice or water under the ice of Enceladus.
So on Titan, they have another probe set to go out back to Titan, and that will be the NASA Dragonfly mission. It's set to launch in 2027, should arrive in Titan around 2034. So between this one and just between two of these flights, the one to Titan and the other to Europa, we have even better chance of getting some idea about the possibility of life on these two moons. Not to mention any other probes we might send out between now and then or even afterwards. Enceladus, though, we don't have any plans to go there as of yet.
And they did fly Cassini through the mist that was coming out of Enceladus, and they did discover chemistry that could possibly
support
means that it harbors life. And the way they believe these moons could have life is under the ocean, life needs energy, right? And life on Earth generally gets energy from the sun. But deep down along the mid-Atlantic ridge, there are these hydrothermic vents. And it has been discovered that life thrives on these on these volcanic vents, essentially, that are pouring out water that's, thousands of degrees and toxic to any other form of life on planet Earth. But there's life thriving here that's evolved to thrive on these hydrothermal vents. And scientists believe, looking at that as an example, that on Enceladus and also on Europa, that could be how life has evolved on those two moons. That's interesting, and that's a few examples of where we could find life in our solar system. And if we did find life in our solar system, it would answer that question: is life unique to Earth? I mean, despite looking at the odds of how many billions upon billions of planets must exist, not only in our galaxy, but in trillions of worlds exist in the universe, highly likely that life exists somewhere else, but we don't know. Until we discover life somewhere, we don't 100% know. And that's why if we discovered even a microbe on one of these moons, it would answer that question. It would say, is life common or is it uncommon? We just don't know yet. Now, we know that on planet Earth, life formed, they believe, something like 2 billion years ago, very long ago. And there's even evidence that it formed long before that. But then the Earth became a molten core again. And what is believed by scientists today is that a smaller planet, Mars-sized planet, collided with the Earth, and the remnants of that became our moon. So the whole surface of the Earth became liquefied again. So if there was any evidence, if any life had arisen then, before then it would have been annihilated during that. So it's believed that life arose on this planet billions of years ago, but life in a multicellular form in which there were animals and plants and an evolving, many species evolving, didn't happen until the Cambrian period, which is in what scientists now call the Cambrian explosion. In the fossil record, about 400 million years ago, 470 million years ago, I think, suddenly multicellular life explodes. I mean, in all the fossil layers that can be dated to that era, we suddenly see multicellular life, where for billions of years, well over a billion years, all we had was single-celled life. So something happened. Something triggered that. Something turned this singular life into multicellular life.
Yeah.
And then once cellular life arose, then it became an arms race of, I'm evolving to better adapt to my environment. I'm going to evolve a way to eat other animals. And then the other animals evolve to defend against that. And just on and on. I mean, evolution in a way is just a race to survive, right? Those who procreate.
Yeah. And we now know that a row of big mini teeth and tiny little arms doesn't work because we don't have any T-Rexes anymore.
Well, there was that little meteor that hit the Earth.
They were on their way out anyway.
Along.
They were already on their way out. Yeah,
probably.
More than likely. Now, whether or not, life evolved on this planet or was directed from somewhere else, that's another idea called panspermia.
Right.
Now,
the idea that life actually arrived here, maybe on a meteor or a comet.
Right. The idea behind that, postulated many times throughout history, but probably the most famous one was a paper written by Francis Crick, who was also the co-discoverer of the double helix, the DNA double helix. And the problem that he ran into, he was an atheist, and he was also a hardcore scientist. But he came up with this problem that he couldn't solve through conventional means. And the problem was simply this, is that in order to have DNA RNA, you would have to have enzymes to produce it. In order to have enzymes to produce it, you would have to have DNA RNA. So this was like a chicken-egg problem. And there was nothing on Earth that could explain the development of this particular problem that they were running into. So he postulated that perhaps some alien species, alien civilization, had used some mineral or some catalyst to put this into motion so that it could be developed, and then spread it throughout the universe and possibly seeded our planet with these chemicals. Now, since then, they've discovered that RNA can by itself produce and act as an enzyme. So the problem was curtailed, and that was even before Crick had passed away. So he pretty much abandoned that idea, obviously, once they had enough information to explain what was going on.
But keep in mind, this was the guy that won the Nobel Prize in biology for the discovery of DNA.
Right.
I mean, he wasn't some crackpot scientist.
Yeah, so scientists do go there. When they run into a problem they can't solve, they leave it open as a possibility. He didn't say it was absolutely this is what was going on, but he postulated it as one possible solution to his problem.
Have you ever seen the movie Prometheus, the continuation of the Alien series, or sort of a prequel thing? Ridley Scott?
Yes, I did see that one. There was a couple others after that one I didn't see.
Yeah. So in Prometheus, I'm not really giving anything away. That's what happens in the very beginning of the history of Earth. It's this alien race seeding Earth. Earth's already here with water and everything, but then that's where DNA comes from.
Right.
It clearly shows the double helix being let loose into the water.
Yeah, and we still can't rule it out, right?
No. I've often thought, what if life is the double helix? What if that is the sign of life? DNA itself,
right,
is life, and it is spread throughout the galaxy, not necessarily by an alien race, but when we're talking about the immenseness time of the age of the universe, is it possible? Maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out.
Oumuamua just passed through our solar system. It was an interstellar object. How many interstellar objects have crashed into the planet? And we know that some forms of bacteria can exist in the vacuum of space. This has been proven by accident. There have been probes that we've sent to space and recovered and found that the bacteria on them are still alive. That's some of the argument in Mars, maybe life still existing in Mars, especially in the subsurface, because there's nothing we know that could survive on the surface of Mars because of the immense radiation, cosmic radiation, just pouring down on that planet. But we actually have a strain of bacteria on this planet that can survive for a good while under hard radiation. And in fact, there's some that thrive on it. Nothing could exist on the surface as far as we know, but under the surface, maybe. And there's evidence of perhaps past life there. Mm-hmm. So let's say life has evolved. If we look at how quickly life seemingly began on our planet, on planet Earth, it's likely that life began somewhere else. Maybe not multicellular life, but maybe the universe is full of single-celled life, similar to what the Earth had for a billion years, 1.5 billion years. Multicellular life could have been a quirk on Earth. That something happened to cause that cellular life to begin.
Yeah, two randy single-celled critters bumped uglies, and
maybe.
Then the mutant baby came out and just was randy as all get out, and then game on.
So when Francis Drake, going back to the Drake equation, when he ran his formula, what was the number of civilizations that he postulated should exist in the Milky Way galaxy?
2.
Advanced civilizations.
1.
That's what we know for sure.
Yeah, I don't remember what... I can look here and tell you. 11 billion course.
Did you know that after Drake, and a lot of Francis Drake's creating this formula had to do with his interest in extraterrestrial life. He was one of the, I guess, founders or one of the people that began SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, by using radio astronomy to try and detect signals from other star systems in our galaxy and also transmitting some information. I believe the very first time that they began a systematic look for radio signals was at Green Bank, West Virginia.
Yep. I've been there. It's awesome.
Right. Now, shit. What did they come up with? So, I guess a couple of ways to look at it in our galaxy. The age of our galaxy is very long. There is no extraterrestrial life that we're aware of. We've never detected it. But then, based on the age of our galaxy, there should be old civilizations that are 1 million years old, 1 billion years old, unless there's some fundamental issue with a species lasting that long, right? We've only been around for a couple of 100,000 years, human beings. What's the next 200,000 years look like for humans? I mean, we've only developed technology, any kind of technology. We learned to farm 10,000 years ago. We learned to write, 5,000 years ago? I mean, our very first civilizations were only a few thousand years ago. What about 4,000 or 5,000 years from now? Where are we going to be? Those are the real questions. One thing I always look at, and I think as you're going to school, and you're, at least when I went to school, there's all these famous paintings or artwork that shows evolution. And they always show like a monkey, and then it evolving into a hominid, and then evolving into something that looks like Homo erectus, and then maybe Neanderthal, and then modern humans, as if evolution is all about evolving to human beings, to intelligent human beings, as if that's the goal of evolution. The goal of evolution is to become us. That's a very ethnocentric way of looking at evolution, because life has existed, multicellular life, advanced life, has existed on this planet for hundreds of millions of years. And life was getting along just fine without human beings evolving, without human beings learning to use tools, learning to control our environment, and all the other things that go along with what we have done. Maybe human beings are pretty darn unique. Maybe there are no other civilizations out there.
Yeah, I found the original entry for the Drake equation, the original numbers that they plugged in, and the result of that was that there are only 10 broadcasting civilizations in our galaxy
that would exist now. Like there would have been many older ones that maybe are no longer around, right?
Right, that whole idea of the great filter, right?
Yeah. So 10 out of 200 billion star systems. Even at that rate, it would be almost impossible to detect, especially if they're on the other side of the galaxy.
Yeah, particularly if they're like using some old Texas Instrument shortwave radio to try to communicate.
Yeah, maybe. These are interesting questions. And at the end of the day, when you look at this, it's all speculation. with the Drake equation, as clever as that is, it's still just a thought experiment. We just don't know. I mean, there's data that scientists can plug in there. The one thing we do know is the formation of stars, the rate of star creation in our galaxy. And now, because of the discovery of exoplanets, we can pretty well estimate how many planets exist, how many planets are in the habitable zone. We have a sample of over 5,000 exoplanets, so we can even look at those numbers. But beyond that, we don't know. We don't know if life can exist beyond Earth. We just don't know.
Yeah, and there are a lot of different answers that people have come up with to the Fermi Paradox, the reason why we haven't been contacted by these, let's say 10 broadcasting civilizations, or have not seen any evidence of them. So there's like the cosmic speed limit, the zoo hypothesis, life is rare, which we just talked about, the great filter, which we briefly mentioned. That's essentially that a civilization gets completely wiped out by some event. Either, like for us, it would be nuclear war might do it, like a nuclear Armageddon, or a cosmic event like an asteroid impact or series of asteroid impacts wipes us out, or some super volcano or something on the planet like that. So,
and I remember even Carl Sagan in Cosmos, the book.
Mm-hmm.
He said maybe civilizations sort of peak out at a point where their populations become so great it requires all the resources of the civilization, or they outstrip the resources of their planet before they have a chance to go out into the rest of the universe and be able to gather new resources, which, I mean, looks very likely, right? I mean, look at where we are technologically and how quickly the human race is going through our resources. Oil and gas is not going to last forever. You know, it's something to think about. You know, there may come a point where just the weight of our civilization itself will overcome our ability to maintain it.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that one. All right, just another thing, keep me awake at night. And then the last one, which is my favorite, hiding out of fear. So
hiding out of fear, maybe.
Yes, maybe the great silence is a result of them going, if they know where we are, they can send things to kill us, because maybe they are as nervous as we are about them. I mean, look at us. We're trying to kill each other. I mean, and we're the same species. When the insect overlords come, when those praying mantis fall in those avocados in our fields, it's game on. And then we're at Starship Troopers. We're going to have to get some of these guys together to fly over to their planets and get chopped up by little clippy arms.
You know, I think, though, that bears some thought here. Let's say there is a civilization. Let's say they've even overcome the cosmic speed limit somehow. Now, we're going to talk about those things in the next couple of episodes. But let's say that there is an alien race out there and they have seen us. Let's say that's what the UFOs are right now. They're just keeping an eye on us because we are this violent, warlike nation. I mean, our democracies and our country tries to talk about equality and human rights and all those things. We talk the talk, but we don't always walk the walk, you know? I mean, there's a lot of nastiness in the world, and we've had several all-out wars before the invention of nuclear technology that was genocide, practically. And the last war in particular, World War II. And now we're just poised on the edge of disaster at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
So maybe they are saying, yeah, we need to watch these guys, because if they develop whatever, warp drive, hyperspace, or something like that, the universe is in trouble. Maybe. And then maybe we're docile compared to the rest of the universe. I don't know. I remember Stephen Hawking made the comment that if alien life is out there, instead of being like SETI and sending out messages like the Arecibo message and other things to let alien races know we're here, that maybe we should try to be quiet, because every time an advanced species or an advanced civilization meets a less advanced civilization, it never ends well for the less advanced civilization. As an example of our own planet, whenever The Spanish came to South America, for instance. Didn't end well for the natives.
Yeah.
Population.
Yeah, maybe that's just the way humans think about things, but it's probably the way the Dauphin people of Tau Ceti think about, So if you were going to send a message to a planet that, by all indications, let's say we view the light going through its atmosphere and it has detections, it detects industrialization that we're familiar with, and you're going to send them a message, what message do you, Stephen Hawk, send them?
That would bear a little bit of thought, I think.
Not me. I know exactly what I'd send.
Yeah, what?
Drink more Ovaltine.
Right. That's a good one.
I got stocks in that company.
And they would probably get it because as many times as Christmas Story's been broadcasted,
sure.
probably made it out to them by now.
How long does it take our radio waves to reach, let's say, the nearest...
Alpha Centauri, 4.37 years. So if there was a civilization that could detect and broadcast radio waves, it would take almost 9 years for the message to return. So we would broadcast a message to them, 4.37 light years, radio waves moving at the speed of light, and then they send their response. It would take another 4.37 years to get back. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the best way to think about it, there's going to be some new spacecraft launched in the next few years that are going to be really good at detecting exoplanets. That should give us a whole lot more details. So I would say in the next couple of decades, we should be in pretty good shape knowing our nearest neighbors that could potentially harbor life. And like you said, there's a good chance we could detect, if they're burning fossil fuels, for instance, that we could detect these chemicals in the air. And we could certainly detect, say, if they were using certain kinds of chemicals that can only be man-made, that don't occur in nature. But still, it would not be a definitive proof, I don't think, until we, get that message. Now, there has been some people that's speculated that if it was a civilization like ours, that if you could block out the brightness of the sun, because the sun in an average solar system is going to be 1 billion times brighter than that planet that you're trying to get a look at if you're looking at it through a telescope. So you have to figure out a way to separate that light, to block that light out so that you can look at that little teensy tiny planet. Some people have speculated if we had enough resolution using methods like gravitational lensing, which would require a lot, but I'm not going to get into all that. But it would be a way to magnify greatly, look at other planets. They would say maybe you could detect the lights of the civilization on the dark side of that planet. Now, we're way away from being able to do that, but that would be another thought. But again, anything we were looking at, for instance, if there was a civilization around Betelgeuse right now, that's 640 light years away. That what we're looking at or hearing a radio wave from would be 640 years in the past. 640 years in our past, we didn't even know what radio waves were.
Yeah, if they're around Betelgeuse, they're screwed.
Yeah,
I think it's going
screwed.
supernova.
Yeah, that planet. I mean, that star has really been fluctuating. It's just something that stuck out in my mind. But cast off all of that. That's why they thought it was just getting ready to go supernova, because of it, where it dimmed. They believed that it cast out that outer layer, shed that outer layer.
Yeah, but it's settled down since.
It has, and the brightness has returned. But they have been able to image that bulge on it, which is very weird because it's such a large star.
Right.
Who knows? I would say it wouldn't surprise me that if some civilizations exist out there, that within the next 100 years, we would be able to detect them.
If they're there.
Yeah. Every decade, every couple of decades, the technology is just amazing. When you look at, for instance, just look at the very first Viking images that were taken of Mars, which was high resolution in the 1970s, and then look at what was done in the 90s. Then look at what's been done since then. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, we can look at things and see it within a meter, of 3 feet. Mm-hmm. The resolution's so good. So as the technology improves, we'll have good candidates of planets that we think could harbor life and maybe harbor some type of intelligent life. But, I mean, who knows?
We might be the first in our own galaxy.
Could be the only.
Right.
In the universe. I mean, it's strange to think about. Certainly some people believe that the Earth is special. I don't think that that's the case. No. I don't think
both of those are
that
unlikely.
We're special. But, I mean, this could be a weird situation. I mean, it could just be we're a real fluke compared to the rest of the galaxy. I think the chances are very good that there's single-cell life out there, and I think the chances are pretty good that there's multicellular, more advanced life. But intelligent life, I don't know. A tool using intelligent life that can build civilizations, that may be an incredibly rare thing.
We should send out probes on this planet in search of intelligent life. And just stay away from DC. Don't go there. That's a dead zone.
Yeah, dead zone, that's for sure. All right, man. Do you have anything you wanted to add to tonight's episode?
No, I think we covered all the things I wanted us to cover. And the final thought, I think, for it would be, from me, would be this. Given the large number of planets, seemingly, that we have, we already detected 5,000 and more every single day. Probably every single day, but at least every time we go looking, we're finding planets. So given the number of planets that likely exist within our galaxy and the number of stars, and the likelihood that, while we can't say with any certainty whether or not life is prevalent throughout our galaxy or anywhere else beyond planet Earth, I can't help but think, just given the sheer size of the numbers, that it's likely that it's pretty prominent in the Milky Way, that there is life out there, and the possibility that there's life out there, particularly when you consider we're only 3 billion years old, our planet, and in the grand scheme of things, we're one of the younger planets within the Milky Way. That there's a lot of other planets out there where you have some civilizations that made it past the Great Filter, and they're thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands years ahead of us of an advanced civilization. I see that as probable, or maybe not probable, but definitely possible. So if we have a civilization that's 1 million years ahead of us, where we are right now, just think about us 1 million years from now. I can see a possibility that the things we're seeing in our skies could be aliens from other worlds.
And I think it's possible that there are advanced civilizations and have been for a long time. Maybe none of these civilizations have been able to overcome the cosmic speed limit, traveling faster than the speed of light. That may be it. And listeners, before you just scoff and say that's just a problem we need to work around, it's not going to be as easy as you think, because every single time general relativity has been tested, Albert Einstein's mathematics have worked perfectly. I mean, when we look at gravitational waves, things that existed in his mathematics, those were just proved relatively recently, that these gravitational waves exist. All of the things like that, black holes, all the things that his math pointed at, relativity, time dilation, all the things that his math proved long before, or his math pointed to long before it was proven and tested in laboratory experiments and so forth.
I would like to counter with, if a Wookiee, a French guy named Picard, and a bunch of Muppets on Farscape can go faster than light, we got a shot.
I hope so. I mean, one reason I became interested in science to start with was as a kid watching things like Star Wars and Star Trek, and the idea of what is out there, what is out there? I mean, that's just a question I would love to be able to answer someday in my lifetime. I mean, I can remember being a kid, lying on my back, looking at the stars, and just thinking about those stars being suns and probably have planets around them. And do they have somebody laying on their back looking back in my direction? Who knows, right? I don't know. I'd love to know what's out there.
I imagine what's out there is a praying mantis laying back on a couch watching an episode of All in the Family where the lead male actor has no head.
That would have to be around 20 light years away, right? Or about 50 light years away, right?
Yeah, something like that.
So that's something to think about. One last thought is everything we've been broadcasting has been leaving our planet at the speed of light. So let's see. Let's say the first television broadcast was in 1950. So that's 73 years. So any planetary system within 73 light years would be getting those television broadcasts. And just think about that, listeners. What is an alien race to think when they watch our sitcoms, or they watch MTV, or they watch Big Brother? I mean, come on.
That's either a reason to exterminate us or just forget about us, one or the other.
Or just to avoid us altogether.
Right. First broadcast radio waves went out in 1928, television broadcast.
I mean, I guess the radio's been around since before then. So,
oh, yeah, for sure.
We're talking 100 years of broadcasting. So, our signals may just be reaching out to someone to be like, oh, wait a minute, we just discovered something here. There could be a SETI group of Francis Drakes out there with their radio telescopes looking for those signals.
There could be somebody out there in the galaxy hearing for the first time. What you talking about, Willis?
All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to wrap it up tonight. I really appreciate everyone tuning in, and be sure to check out the next couple of episodes as we continue this conversation. But before we leave, I'd like to remind everyone to please rate and review the podcast. It helps other people find the show. Look for us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Our webpage is cosmicsponge.com. Our contact information is firstcontact@cosmicsponge.com. Jimmy, did I leave anything out?
No, I think you covered it all, as always.
Well, with that being said, this is Stephen Hawk signing out, and we'll see you next week.
And Jimmy Coe, keep your eyes to the skies and your feet on the ground. I'll see you next week.
So maybe you should let everyone know what it means when a praying mantis loses its head.
It means he's had a good time with the missus and has procreated and is no longer useful. Thank God that's not how we work.
Yeah, the male will be doing his business on the female, and she reaches around and eats his head.
Yeah, it's awful.
She rips his head. Yeah.
No good. No good. Being celibate isn't
bad
all that
first
bad.
date.
Yeah, bad first date. You want to go on a date? No, thank you. I'm good.
Think about that praying mantis. Man, I can't believe this is happening. Oh, this is so awesome.
I'm staying home and watching some reruns. There's this thing called Different Strokes coming on.
All right, man, let's get out of here.
Later. That's all for this week's episode of Cosmic Sponge. Please don't forget to rate and review us wherever you listen. It helps others find the show. If you have any questions or have a story you'd like to share, you can contact us using our email account at firstcontact@cosmicsponge.com. If you'd like to support the show, consider becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/cosmicsponge, where you get access to exclusive content, including our Weird Wonders news and stories released every week. To explore everything Cosmic Sponge has to offer, including other ways to support the show, head on over to our website at www.cosmicsponge.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week.